Okay.
Chair Warden. Dr. Sheila Williams.
Present.
George Archuleta.
Here.
Virginia Houston.
Present.
Holly White.
Present.
Virginia, Pam Pereza.
Here.
Rodney
Here.
and Gracie Williams. I got it. I had it on, and then I guess when I clipped it to my jacket, it turned off. Now I'd like to call on Board Member Virginia Houston for the Ethics Awareness Statement, please.
Welcome to the September 26, 2022 meeting of the Elizabeth City Pasquotank Board of Education. It is my duty to remind members of the board that it is our responsibility to avoid all conflicts of interest and potential conflicts of interest in accordance with Chapter 138A of North Carolina General Statutes. As public servants, it is our duty to continually monitor, evaluate, and manage our personal, financial, and professional affairs in such a way as to ensure the absence of conflicts or potential conflicts. Does any member know of any conflict of interest or potential conflict of interest with respect to any matter coming before this board? Let the record reflect that no conflicts exist.
Okay, at this time, we're going to turn the meeting over to Dr. Parker for some recognitions of, as I indicated before, Pasquotank Elementary and P.W. Moore Elementary are being highlighted tonight. And we are very, very excited to be doing that. So with that said, I believe Dexter,
Yep.
Mr. Jackson Hurd, excuse me.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Appreciate the opportunity, and we are very excited because we're going to begin recognizing schools at each of our regular board meetings and recognizing our staff and students. And so tonight is the first night we're going to be doing that, and Pasquotank Elementary and P.W. Moore are up tonight. So I'm just so excited to see all the young people that are out here and the families, and I'm looking forward to seeing the recognition. So Mr. Jackson Hurd is going to set us up for that. Thank you, Dexter.
Good evening, Chair Warden.
Mr. Hurd, excuse me just a minute.
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Sharon, we need to approve the agenda. Oh, okay. All right, may I have a motion from the floor to approve the agenda?
I move to approve the agenda as printed.
And a second?
Second.
Okay, and a roll call vote for that. Dr. Sheila Williams,
Yes.
George Archuleta, Virginia Houston,
Yes.
Holly Weiss,
Yes.
Pam Pereza,
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Walton, Daniel Spence,
Yes.
and Gracie Wood.
It's supposed to take you.
And thank you, Ms. Parker. Now, Mr. Jackson Hurd.
Thank you. All right. I guess I'll start begin again. Good evening, Chair Warden, members of the board, Superintendent Parker, our learners, parents, and everyone watching. I'm very pleased to be a part of an important portion of this meeting that highlights and celebrates the accomplishments of our schools. Today, we will put the spotlight on Pastank and P.W. Moore Elementary Schools. We want to use this opportunity to share with you and our community the great things that are happening in our schools. So without delay, we will start with Ms. Simona White, principal of Pastank Elementary School.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Chair Warden, Vice Chair, members of the board, and everyone assembled. It is actually indeed an honor for me to stand before you all this evening to recognize our students who have exceeded excellence, as well as some of our staff members. And with that being said, the first young person I'd like to recognize would be Miss Isabella Alvarez. Our Battle of the Books team competed at the end of the year, and Pastank Elementary School won first place. And I'd like to honor and recognize those students. So if Miss Alvarez would come up. And although not with us, I'd like to acknowledge these students as well. Catherine Sosa Diaz, Michelle Saran Madrano, and Tyler Williams. We have students who have gone on to middle school. We have Trinity Montague, Jameer Porter, Cameron Dennis. They were a part of that awesome team as well. So again, thank you and congratulations. Our next recipient was Channel 8 TV star. That's what we're gonna call her. She was a part of the STAR reading program, our summer reading program. And if any of you all had a chance to see Channel 8, she is a current third grader here at Pastank Elementary School, and we would like to recognize Miss Olivia Whitby, who had no. Yeah. Our next recipient, who has also exceeded excellence this summer, participated in the STEM program sponsored by UNC Chapel Hill, and that would be Mr. Ashir Antamez.
Yeah.
The next section will be some of our staff members, our employees, our Pasco Tank family members. The first recognition will go to Miss Ashley Baggio. She was our PES Teacher of the Year for 2022-2023. Come on up, Miss B. The next two recipients will be receiving awards for exceeding excellence in outstanding everything. They've really gone above and beyond, asked for other responsibilities, have asked for opportunities for growth, and have really shown a spirit of Pasquotank pride and excellence. And in that, we would like to recognize Ms. Karen Colson. See what happens when you ask to grow. And Ms. Tracy Norman. The last award that we would like to share this evening actually goes for outstanding teamwork, because without teamwork and everyone pulling and working together, nothing can be accomplished. And this award actually goes to the entire faculty and staff at Pasquotank Elementary School. So. Back up. Ms. Colson is actually our school improvement team chair, so if you could come back up to represent the faculty and staff, please. Thank you all.
Good evening, Board Chair Warden, fellow board members, Dr. Parker, and guests in the house. I bring a round of roaring greetings from the Lion's Den. Ms. Everett is here with me as we give these recognitions. We'll start with our students. We have several students that came in ready to demonstrate their leadership role this year as fifth graders at the school. Day one, they were ready to lead the safety patrol. 2 years running now, and to make our morning announcements to keep us on time. So at this time, I would like to recognize Gabrielle Morgan. Gabrielle Morgan. Miss Allison Melgar, are you? Another student that was not able to be with us tonight, Miss Micaiah Arnold. Next, I have a young lady that was caught doing the right thing in front of her peers. Miss Jade Williams couldn't be with us, but I want to thank her for standing up for other students by saying kind things when other students saw things in a different light. So that was very important. And now to our staff recognitions. We're going to start off with recognizing the dedicated, hardworking staff that began the year with the roar for our custodial team. They came in August 3rd, maybe, and they started getting our building ready. We had summer camp in the building. They came in along with our head custodian, Mr. Odom, and just started getting those floors ready, stripping, waxing, rooms done, rearranging furniture, you name it, we asked, they did it. So the first one will be for Mr. Odom, who is at the building right now, but Mr. Corey Highsmith. Thank you, Corey. Mr. Davon Johnson. To our dedicated data manager, bookkeeper, and the latest title, secretary receptionist, Maureen Grabgard. She has worn many hats lately and not complained about anything. The first one in the building, the last one to leave, right after me, that is. Doing emails.
It's been there for a long time.
Next, we have a teacher that has taken on a huge leadership role for our school this year. She's taken the role of mentor, grade level chair. She's working with her team to plan field trips for our students so they can make connections with what they're learning in the classroom. Currently, she is arranging a fall event for her grade level. Miss Shanice Whitby was successful when inviting grandparents out to read with the students in kindergarten and first grade. She organized the event with her fellow colleagues. Miss Whitby. For our beginning teacher of the year, Ms. Brickhouse was nominated by her peers for being an outstanding teacher and great team player. This is her second year at PW Moore. She works well with our students and our staff. She jumped in last year and took off running, making her classroom environment inviting for all students. Leanne Brickhouse, beginning teacher of the year. And now for our teacher of the year. Miss Jennifer Hillard was also selected by the North Carolina Council of Teachers of Mathematics for an outstanding job being an elementary school mathematics teacher for the 21-22 school year. She will be honored at the NCCTM 2022 annual conference at the Benton Convention Center in Winston-Salem, November 10th and 11th. She will be featured at the conference along with all outstanding elementary school mathematics teachers. Awarded recipients will be honored at the NCCTM awards ceremony. Thank you, Ms. Hillard.
And as everyone gets back to their seats, let me just say, we've got a lot of wonderful things going on in our schools. And we've got some great kids, some wonderful teachers, some fantastic maintenance workers. So you guys just keep doing what you're doing because we're very, very proud of you as a board. I can't say it enough. Amen, amen, and amen. Congratulations to each and every one of you.
I second that.
Okay. All right, we're going to move on with our instructional highlights. Is that correct? And we have those highlights coming from Pasquotank Elementary, of course, and PW Moore Elementary, our two host schools.
Sounds good. Good evening, Madam Board Chair Warden, Madam Vice Chair, Dr. Williams, school board members, Superintendent, Dr. Parker, and guests. I'd like to thank you for providing us with the opportunity to come before you this evening. Tonight, Principal Ambrose of PW Moore and Principal White of Pasquotank Elementary School will share with you their instructional focus for this current school year, along with some exciting, engaging instructional highlights from this school year. We'll start with Principal Ambrose from PW Moore, followed by Principal White from Pasquotank Elementary School.
So now for the highlights of how we're breaking barriers at PW Moore this year. Let me start with the way that we are going to use multiple tiers of instruction to move our students from meeting growth to exceeding growth. We are continuing to implement Lion Pride Time. The first 45 minutes of our day, our staff members are working in small groups based on the needs of the students. Teachers look at the data from M-Class, iReady Reading, and Math, and class performance to determine the skills the students have not mastered. We will use Title I funds to hire interventionists to work with the students in small groups based on this beginning of year data. Our goal is to fill the gaps that are holding our students back so they can be successful. One resource that we will use this year is Reading Horizons. All staff were trained at the beginning of the school year. Reading Horizons has a huge focus on phonemic awareness. We need our students to learn how to read in the early grades so they can build a love of reading and learn from the materials they are reading. We are connecting literacy with hands-on activities. Our students are excited to work in teams as they explore science topics through literacy. The collaboration on projects get the students talking in positive ways by brainstorming creative solutions using specific materials. We are using literacy to convey how science, technology, engineering, and mathematics intersect in the real world. The books have embedded reading comprehension strategies. That's okay. To integrate the STEM subjects and English language arts through high-quality picture books. Our students are engaged in activities while learning to read and reading to learn. We are excited to bring our parents back in the building this year. And again, Miss Whidbey, she saw the need for that, and she started off right away bringing the grandparents in to read. So those are the initiatives that we're taking on, and now to see it in action in our video.
This year, we wanted to try some new strategies as we break through the barriers for our students. The first barrier we wanted to break through was the differentiation for each child. To do that, we incorporate line class time from 7:45 to 8:30 every day. During line class, the students are focused on the skills they have not mastered yet. Whether they're in second grade and still need some kindergarten skills, or they're in first grade and they need skills that are in second grade. We master whatever skills they need by having intervention in that morning block for 45 minutes. The next barrier we encountered was to meet the students so that they could exceed growth. In order to do that, our teachers are having small group rotation throughout their lessons. So we have a few minutes for whole group instruction, and then we go straight into rotations. Some of the teachers are using blended learning.
This year, we have introduced the blended learning model in our classroom. Blended learning model combines use of online learning opportunities for students to master the skills that we've been working on in the classroom. What I love the most about the blended learning model is it provides students with some choice in the activity that they're working on to extend their learning beyond the classroom walls. It also allows students to work at their own pace. There are opportunities for students to work independently, work collaboratively, and this also brings me up to pools numbers of students to provide interventions to really target those skills that they may have missed from previous grades.
This year, we have also incorporated science with our literacy. So the students will have a 45-minute class where they go each week on a Connect schedule. They will have a book, literacy challenge to do. They will read, then they can work in collaborative groups. During collaboration, they have to come together to solve or create a project.
I am Eric Williams in grade, and we connect reading with STEM. We will learn about how the school will build in this town, and then he reached second grade, and the second grade teacher didn't want to live in the town. Then one day they were sitting on the island. After that, they moved the grades. And then the teacher was confident about business. And then after that, we used 1 yard of tape, one large marshmallow, and we also used 10 spaghetti sticks. And we built a marshmallow town.
Right.
Well, that about students, I've never been signed before in my life. It's,
Another thing I'm doing this year, bringing back our parents into the school. One initiative I wanted to bring back to school was to get the community back involved. So we had Grandparents' Day, where the parents got to come to participate with their children, they read a story and then, wonderful activity. All the children were so excited, I was excited, they were able to come back in the building. That's what I think is important in this school, getting the community together, involved in our school. We do have private one nights when parents come at night and participate in activities, but if we do it during the day, some parents that work at night have the opportunity to come in, but they may not be able to otherwise. I believe with these initiatives that we have this year, our students will be able to not only meet growth, but exceed growth this school year. Good job.
So, good evening. At Pasquotank Elementary, our theme this year is growing and glowing. We were able to meet our growth goals with the past school year. We want to continue to grow, and we're going to glow while we're doing so. And this year, our instructional focus really will be strategic and intentional small group instruction K-5. Those things will happen through our ELA, math, and road runner time. Road runner time for us is our intervention and enrichment block. And with that piece, that is a 45-minute portion that is built into our schedule. And through that time, we'll work on reading strategies, math strategies. We will continue with our corrective reading program. And with corrective reading, that gives children an opportunity to work to catch up with phonics instruction, with comprehension skills, those things that they may be in need of, as well as within the classroom, guided reading and guided math, and really work on the grouping for daily 3 and daily 5. And with our flexible and creative scheduling, if a student happens to need something during intervention time, if you're in a 3rd grade class and you need to go to a 2nd grade class, or if you're in a 2nd grade class and you need to go to a 4th grade class, you have the flexibility to do those things, as well as through our Connect classes, there's a double dose of basic skills with those classes as well. So that's another opportunity for our students to have extra practice. So our Connect teachers have gotten with our core teachers and they know what skills are needed for the entire year. And we've broken it down by 9 weeks and they're able to have that extra support in there. For literary and writing connection, that will go all the way across the board, including looking at error analysis for mathematics. We're not just going to say, here's how you answer the problem. The problem is right, the problem is wrong. We're writing through it and we're explaining what we're doing, along with process writing for this is how we're writing a paragraph. We're going back to some of the traditional methods of writing. Professional development, That will be for everyone. And when I say that, that's not just teachers, that is instructional assistants in our building because we all teach. So everyone needs to know exactly how to do everything if we're all working with our groups of children. So we'll be continuing our work with vocabulary and math professional development, as well as working with flexible creativity and Dr. Dan Mulligan, particularly with the second question, trying to go in for a deeper understanding of questioning techniques. Utilizing some of our Title I funds, we will look for interventionist support. We're asking for 3 interventionists that will assist us throughout the day, with a plan of having 1 interventionist to work with K-1 students, 1 interventionist for 2-3 students, and 1 interventionist for 4-5 students. That way, with a breakdown with smaller grade levels and that opportunity to just hone in on those particular skills versus going full school. We will continue our triangulated data collection and analyzation, of course, dealing with our M-Class and SchoolNet, pre and post formative assessments, common formative assessments. A major portion of our culture is growth mindset. Our students, our teachers, everyone has to continue to believe in themselves, believe in the power of yet, believe in what we are actually able to do. So we're going to continue that growth mindset and that culture here at Pasquotank Elementary, and we will be able to do that through the work that we do, but also with the parent and community support that we have. And that is still true, that every student matters and every moment counts. Mr. Jackson Hurd looked at me like, are you going to say it? It's true, I don't have to say it. It is true. This year, the theme at Pasquotank Elementary School is growing and glowing. And one initiative that we have that is most important to us is to work with small group instruction. We know that if we have quality, sound, face-to-face instruction with our students will continue to blossom and shine. So our small group instruction will not only happen in just a ELA block or just a math block, it will happen throughout the entire school, grades K-5, and throughout all subject areas, including enrichment time as well as intervention time.
We work together on different skills. It is important that they have those small groups because they are kind of on the same level of learning. Once I teach them, they teach each other. So when they're teaching each other, they learn, to me, a little bit more because it's coming from their peer and they're kind of reinforcing what I've taught them. Group instruction is important because it gives me personal relationships with students. I can see things that data can't show me when I am in a small group. Just because it's not tested, I also can read behaviors and body language and kind of give them that support that they need when they are not understanding something or if they are grasping the concept.
With the teacher, in small groups, we actually get to work with kids that are at our level, and we get to work at the pace, and we get to learn how to work with other kids. I like that I can help the other people. It's also good because I get to go with like 5 kids and not 20.
So far, we've been able to see students engaged in their academics. They've been working with manipulatives. They've been working with their teachers. They've been working with their other classmates. They've been able to have collaborative pairs. They've been able to have think pair shares in number talks. They've been able to really engage in the learning, and they're able to not only answer a question,
but they're able to explain why the answer is what it is. So we know that there's a deeper learning taking place in each and everything that they're doing.
You are building confidence. So sometimes I do a lot of front loading, so I might introduce what I'm going to teach next in a small group. So I have some students that are already ready to learn, and they can kind of engage in class a little bit more than others because I've front loaded them before I've actually taught the standard. So those students are mostly my high learners. The high learners, I give them a little bit of information before I go into the next standard so that they can kind of help each other, or it will trickle down in the classroom setting to the students that are not so familiar with the standard. This is something that is encouraged for our school, and we use a lot of resources and kind of parallel teach. So what goes on in 3rd grade, it kind of builds upon 4th grade, and 4th grade kind of parallels with 5th grade. So it's becoming that cohesive learning, parallel learning.
I believe that as we continue along this journey with the initiatives that we have in place, not only with our small group instruction, but as well as our growth mindset that we have and building the confidence of our students, our teachers, building the sense of community that we have here at Pasquotank Elementary, we will continue to be like that phoenix and rise and rise and rise.
I want to say thank you to Ms. Ambrose and also to Ms. White for their superior leadership. Mr. Fudge, thank you for assisting tonight as well. And Ms. Ambrose and Ms. White, your staffs, please thank them on behalf of the board. Continue the good work that we've just seen a small sample of, but we know that it's going on each and every day, each and every moment, and our kids are going to grow and glow. So thank you so much for your hard work and every effort that you put in towards our students. Thank you. Okay, now we're going to move on to our superintendent's report. Dr. Parker.
All right. Are you picking me up on that one, Dexter? You got me? I hear it coming through the speakers. We're good to go. Thank you, Madam Chair. There we go. Want to echo the chair's comments and thank our 2 schools for coming out. And we are excited because each, I'm going to switch over to
We don't
this.
have any.
I want to appreciate Dexter right now. We got you moving tonight, Dexter. So thank you for holding it down. I've been in those shoes. It's hard to do sound, video, and you name it. So I appreciate the work, Dexter. Again, want to thank the schools for coming out. We're excited about this format because we're going to now be holding our regular board meetings, which is the board meeting on the last Monday of the month. Our next one will be on October 24th. We're going to hold those regular meetings at our schools. And we'll start moving around the district, going to each school. And our October meeting on October 24th will be at Sheep Harney Elementary School. And when we go to Sheep Harney, we're going to recognize Sheep Harney staff, as we've done tonight for Pasquotank and P.W. Moore, and also give Dr. Waples an opportunity to share an instructional highlight. So we're excited about that. And our committee meetings, which are the week before that every month, will now be moved back to be held at the central office conference room. Those are open meetings as well, and they're open to the public, but they'll be at the central office conference room every month. The full schedule of all of those regular meetings are on our website. We certainly want to invite the public to join us at any of those meetings they would like to do that. Want to just say that we did release our report cards, our interim reports on September 22nd. So those have gone out. Parents can access those in parent portal in Power School. So if you've not checked your child's interim report, then know that that's available and can be accessed in Power School. The end of our grading period, our first marking quarter, is going to be on October 19th. And then report cards will go home on October 26th. So if any of our students are out there listening, you want to make sure you have all your assignments turned in by October 19th, because that's going to be the deadline for the quarter. And then report cards will go out. October 20th is going to be a teacher work day, and we're planning a professional development for our teachers on half of that day. And so that will be, no students will not be in session on October 20th. Just two other quick updates. One is the Education Foundation is planning to hold its annual golf tournament on this Friday, pending weather. So everybody just keep your fingers crossed that Hurricane Ian will work with us and at least let us get the golf tournament in. Proceeds of that will go to our Education Foundation. So I want to thank the foundation for their work in organizing that and supporting our teachers and students through fundraisers like that. The final thing I would say, which would be of interest to our staff and to our parents, is we are monitoring very closely Hurricane Ian that has just a minute ago has now turned into a Category 2 hurricane that is going to impact the Gulf and certainly Florida. So our thoughts and prayers go to our fellow citizens in Florida that are going to deal with the majority of that storm. But we are watching that storm very closely. I think it's too early for us to know right now if we'll get impact from that on Friday or Saturday via rain. I saw one projection that's calling anywhere from 5 to 6 to 7 inches of rain for eastern North Carolina, but it's really just too early to know. Some of the models have us starting to get rain on Friday. Some models have us getting rain on Saturday. So we're watching that every day, and we actually met this morning with our maintenance and transportation, myself, and emergency management to track that storm. So our priority one is the safety of all students. And if there's going to be a lot of weather or rain on Friday, then we're taking that into account to make sure that students get to school safely and they get home, knowing that road sometimes can be a problem. I will say that, my instinct is always to be very cautious on weather calls. I would much rather to make a weather call and not run buses and it not rain than us run buses and then some roads flood and we put kids in harm. So one of the commitments I'll make to our families is we want to be in a position to let you know if we're going to release or cancel school, because I know childcare and arranging childcare is a very important thing for a family. So we're trying to do the best we can to get all the data so that we've made the right decision on Friday, depending on what the weather will look like. So more information on that, and we'll certainly keep our families updated as we watch the storm very closely. And that was the last thing I had. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Dr. Parker. I hope we won't have to deal with a hurricane. The rain might not be so bad, but of course we have to deal with flooding oftentimes in this area anyway. I notice people are starting to file out, and if you wish to leave at this time, you're certainly invited to do so. But you are also encouraged to stay if you wish to do that as well. So with that said, okay, now we're going to turn our meeting over to our student board members, and they have some reports for us tonight. And we are going to start with our representative from Northeastern. You may introduce yourself and then share your report with us.
Okay, is this on? Maybe that's not close enough. All right. My name is Gracie Wooten. I am the representative from Northeastern High School. To the board members, I've printed out Google Forms. There's a pie chart, and on the back of it, it's written responses from some of the students. Not all of them filled it out. I also have read through all of them. I know some of the responses aren't things that we can necessarily fix, but there are a few in there that I feel like y'all would like to look at. But over the few weeks that we've been back in school, just a few observations that I've made and heard from other students are like communication with admin. I think mostly it's kids not knowing that they have the resources to reach out to them. So I think I will like maybe like plaster out like their emails and things like that. Like if you do have questions, these are your guidance counselors, this is your principal. Like I understand it's like a freshman coming into a new school with a bunch of different kids. It can be a little nerve-wracking to like ask questions about things that you don't necessarily know. So I'm going to be hopefully a voice to those kids so they can figure out that it's okay to ask questions. Like no, there's no dumb question because there are things that you need to know. But those are just a few things that I've noticed. I don't have a class period until second period, so I don't get there until 10:20. But I've heard things about like the metal detectors at school and like it's making kids late to class. I don't know if that's a school board thing or just Northeastern's thing. I really have no idea with that. But that's another thing that I've heard is that the line in the morning is making the kids tardy. And they're like, am I missing out on instruction? Am I going to be able to make up that work that I miss out? I really don't know how late it's making the kids, but those are just things that have been told to me. But that is all that I have. So thank you.
Thank you. And I started just glancing through some of the comments. Very good, very informative. And I'm sure we'll be discussing them. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
I just wanted to tell you, I had heard from a parent who had called me, who had a student who went to Northeastern, and they said the parent indicated that it was one of the smoothest beginnings they had ever had. So I just thought you'd be interested in that.
Yeah, I mean, as a senior, I've gone through the 4 years there already, basically. And I know from and being a teacher's kid, I also know that the first week of school is normally the most chaotic because there's kids coming in from different schools. Some of them don't have all their classes lined up and classes need to be dropped. So I know that it's very crazy week for admin. So I was like, okay, well, I'm going to send it out and let the kids tell me, but I also know that some of these responses are just trying to get as much done for them when not really thinking that everybody has to get everything done and there's only so many admin and there's so many more students. So I was very like open-minded to those responses too.
Nice job. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, and now we're going to turn it over to our representative from Pasquotank.
Good evening, everyone. Is this working? Yes. Okay. Thank you. I'm Holly Weiss, and I'm the student representative from Pasquotank. I first want to start off with some of the good things that I've seen this year. We really had a good start to the school year. It was really smooth compared to years past, so I really want to say congrats to the administration on that. It was a really smooth start. We also have a new tardy system at our school, and it is working really well. It's where you scan a QR code if you're tardy to class, and then automatically you put in your student lunch number, and then it automatically pulls up how many tardies you have and your consequence for that tardy. So if I want to say it's the first 3, it's just a written consequence, and then after that, it's more. But it automatically tells you how many you have, and it keeps that in the system. So that's working really well at our school. I also really want to say that it's really great to see our principals and assistant principals and Superintendent Dr. Parker and other board members in our school. It's great to see them visiting classrooms and attending sports games. I then sent out a Google form to all the students and staff to collect feedback, just like Gracie had done. One of the main things that I had seen and read was more club support. So whether this be covering travel funds, transportation on the bus, or covering like rooms for students who attend state competitions, or it could be a meal fund. These really come with DECA and FFA, which are the 2 major clubs at our school. We attend States for DECA, which is a 3-day trip. It really is an educational trip because you do learn life skills along the line and you learn an interview-like situation. And then at FFA, we go to state convention, which is another, 2-3 day trip where we go to Raleigh and we compete and we learn a lot about FFA. With CTE-based clubs like DECA FFA, FCLA, FCCLA, and FBLA, there are ways students gain and experience real-world opportunities based inside and outside our small town. Many students do not join the clubs at our school because of the costs associated with them. So I think it would be a huge thing to have more financial support for those major clubs at our school. And other teachers have also commented on that. Another thing, a few students and staff members have mentioned to have the paintings in the hallways redone and also some positive quotes around the school. And building the staff and students up will make school a better place for everyone. So maybe some funding or any support in that way will help with that. That would be a huge thing. And then just to comment on Gracie's thing about the metal detectors, I also don't go to school until second block, but I have heard from numerous students that there is always a line. They do end up being late for class, and I know that some of the stuff, nobody can do about it. But maybe having some more staff members out there searching bags, that's the huge thing. Going through the metal detector is fine. It's just the searching the bags part. So maybe having a few more staff members out there, that would greatly help, or having another metal detector to have 2 lines going instead of just 1 metal detector. So those are really just the main things that I've noticed and that I've got feedback from for the first few weeks of school.
Thank you, Holly.
Thank you.
Before I move on, I just want to say you girls did an incredible job tonight, and we're looking forward to hearing from you at our next meeting. Thank you for the informative information. Some of the things I would encourage you to hopefully have conversations with your principals at school, because you're the leaders in that school, or, part of the leadership in that school. And certainly you have the responsibility to share that with your on-site leaders. So be sure and do that. Okay?
May I just ask a quick question? You said checking bags. So are you saying that all the students' backpacks, bags have to be checked, every student?
Yes, ma'am. So when we walk into school, we take our bags off, our cell phone and keys out of our pocket and put it on the table. We unzip our pockets, and then they search through all the pockets in the book bag. We walk through the metal detectors and then collect our bag and materials when we're done.
Is that similar at Northeastern as well?
My dad is the SRO officer at Northeastern. So from conversations that I've heard, I was under the impression that it's every 6th bag that they check. I could be wrong on that. I could be very wrong on that. But I don't think it's every bag being checked. I think it's every few bags being checked. But I do know that they're skimming through them, but not fully checking them. And we also have 2 metal detectors. We have one in the front entrance of our school, and then one by the bus area in the cafeteria. Even still, in the front entrance where mainly all of our students come through, is still a long line. But
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Question real quick. Does P-Tank have 2 also, or they only have 1?
We have one for the buses where the bus riders come in, and then one for the people who come through the main door. So there is,
There's still,
but there's
but the,
also an extra one in the hallway. Just
sitting in the hallway? Okay. Oh, it needs to be repaired. Okay, cool.
That staff can use. And one of the things that caused us to redivert the location of the metal detector was the first week of school, more students drove or were dropped off. So there was more of a line at the front of the school. And now at P-Tank in particular, more kids have now ridden the bus, so now there can be a longer line in the bus line. So we're using those metal detectors to redirect where the line goes, but our goal is to get additional wands, and we're exploring the concept of doing like a like a priority pass. Like if you don't have a backpack, you could just be wand. You do the wand and you could go straight through. And that would at least allow us to have two lines and try to move through a little bit quicker. So we got some things in the work that works to explore there on that. But the lines are getting faster, but we have some work to do. So thank y'all for sharing that out. And it's definitely something we're looking into.
Parker, I think to answer this better, is it their policy or checking everyone or every 6 or every 5, or that up to the school?
There is not a policy on that. What I would say, without going into the depth of what the practices are, because I wouldn't want to share that to the public, because it is our security practice to decide what bag is searched. We do search the bags, but there can be a randomization of the bag search based on the day, but we can also search every bag every day. So that is also dependent on the day, and the schools make that choice individually.
Okay, going on, we need a motion from the floor for the approval of the minutes for August 22nd and September 19th.
Madam Chair, I move that we approve the minutes for August 22nd and for September 19th, 2022.
Now I need a second.
Second.
So we've had a motion and a second, and now we need a roll call vote.
Dr. Sheila Williams,
Yes.
George Archuleta,
Yes.
Virginia Houston,
Yes.
Pam Perezza,
Yes.
Rodney Walton,
Yes.
and Daniel Spence.
Okay, now we're at the part of our regular board meeting. We allow citizens to make public comment who have signed up for that option or who have notified central office prior to the night's meeting that they would like to come and make comments. There is a time limit on these comments. And so we have one person who has signed up tonight, and Mr. Tony Sawyer.
By the way, I did ask for 8 minutes, which I do have that right to, and I don't think that should be a problem tonight with me being the only speaker.
We do have a limit, Mr. Sawyer, and it is a problem.
I did.
So, Ms. Parker, if you'll let me know when the time limit is up. Okay, go ahead. Mr.
Okay, it seemed like it didn't become a problem until I announced I was running against you. Been through this before. The reason why I'm here today is some things that I had addressed before. And I think that with a new superintendent, one that's actually going to stay this time, and knowing that there's a good chance that there could be 4 new faces in here in just 6 weeks, I'm hoping I can get more attention this time. I want to talk about the background check that the board implemented in March of 21. The Federal Trade Commission and the Fair Credit Reporting Act both read, if you background information, the notice must be in writing and in standalone format. When I was dismissed from the football team after 17 years, I never received anything in writing. This is a federal law that's been broken. All I got was a nasty phone call from the school spokesperson at the time, who's now at COA, saying, we thank you for the last 17 years of your distinguished service, but due to some things in your record, even though they're very old, you cannot be around children. First of all, is there anybody in this room that has seen a child put on a football helmet at the varsity level at Northeastern High School? This notice cannot be in an employment application, which it is, such as a new background system that this board approved in March. By law, the employer must provide a candidate with a copy of the report and notify them of their right before taking any action. Well, I was terminated after 17 years, effective immediately. It wasn't until 9 months later when I demanded the board to give me in writing from the school attorney what it was they were holding over my head. And it came down to 4 misdemeanors, all 31 years old or older, all of them. So I went through a very, very time-consuming experience trying to get my record expunged. I have made it to the last stop, and that is Monday in Superior Court under the District Judge Edgar Barnes, who's going to hear my 4 cases that I'm trying to get expunged that are 31 years old or older. So hopefully by Monday, if anybody else brings it up and he clears my name, that's also a federal offense as well. This school system continues to have problems filling bus driver jobs, school teaching jobs. And I really believe that it's got a lot to do with the way the background checks are being looked at. It seems to me that when people do background checks, or at least in the past anyway, they're looking for reasons not to hire somebody. You know, they should be looking for reasons to hire someone. Because I'm gonna be honest with you, if you search for dirt on anybody, you're gonna find it. There's nobody perfect in this room. There's a couple of women in here that think they are, but they're not. I'd like to quote something that Nelson Mandela said. Before casting judgment on someone, look to see if their good deeds far outweigh any bad deeds before rendering any decision. Came from Nelson Mandela. You know, I've been driving a cab for 18 years and own 4 more. Every day I pick kids up and take them to school, take them back home. From 5 years on, 5 years and up, never had a problem. Was at Northeastern High School for 17 years. Mr. Parker, I'm gonna show you this. I've already showed it to people before. The woman beside you, 3 years ago, gave me this award, Employee Succeeding Excellence. That was 3 years ago. What has changed since then? You know, it makes no sense. I'd like to quote another Morgan Freeman.
Chair Warden.
We all have past. We all made choices that maybe
Mr. Sawyer, your time is
were
up.
best when your time gonna be up in 6 weeks. None of us are completely innocent, but we all
Mr. Sawyer.
get a fresh start every day to be a better person than we were yesterday. You know, this was an attack on me, a racial attack. I don't know how many of y'all been discriminated against, but it's not a good feeling. See y'all in 6 weeks.
Tony, Mr. Sawyer.
Okay, we need to take action on the fundraisers items, attachment FBT 03 that were discussed at the committee meeting last week. So I need a motion to approve those fundraisers from the floor.
I make a motion that we approve the consent agenda for September 26, 2022, which consists of FP 03.
Second.
Okay, we've had a motion and a second to approve attachment FBT 03. Now we need a roll call vote.
Dr. Sheila Williams. George Archuleta.
Yes.
Virginia Houston.
Yes.
Pam Perezza.
Yes.
Rodney Walton.
Yes.
Daniel Spence.
Yes.
One question. We're laughing. I do something wrong.
We said yes or second at the same time, and it almost was like in unison.
Okay, I just want to make sure.
No, you didn't do anything wrong.
Thank you.
Okay, now at this time, I would like to call on Ms. Haynes, our financial officer.
Chair Warden, Vice Chair Williams, and board members, good evening. Finance does have one item on the agenda this evening. It is an additional request for fundraisers. It's attachment FBT01 in your packet. Are there any questions on these fundraisers? Chair Warden, if there are no questions, we're asking that the board approve these this evening.
Like a motion from the floor to approve the fundraisers, attachment FBT-01 and a second.
Motion to approve FBT 01 as presented.
We've had a motion and a second. Now we need a roll call vote.
Dr. Sheila Williams.
Yes.
George Archuleta.
Yes.
Ms. Houston.
Yes.
Pam Pereza.
Yes.
Rodney
Yes.
Walton. And Daniel Spence.
Yes.
The motion is approved. Thank you, Ms. Haynes. Now I'd like to turn it over to Ms. Pereza, who is Chair of the Personalized Education Committee.
Thank you. First, we'll have Dr. Parker present the school performance grades.
Thank you, Ms. Perez. Right, Dexter will pull that up, and then I believe I've got the slide here to advance. Did want to share with the board a summary of 2021-22 school accountability data and make that available to you. You do have the handout here, and this is information that has been shared with all of our schools. And it's information that is public data, and it is something that is guiding our work as we move into this school year. So I wanted to highlight a couple of things here. One is there's a couple of important pieces of legislation that define how a school is evaluated in North Carolina and the United States. And so particularly for us, in 2013, the North Carolina General Statute passed legislation that created what is the school performance grading system. And so every school, every public school in North Carolina receives a school performance grade from A to F. And it is defined on a couple of things that I'll share here in 1 second. So North Carolina legislation from the General Assembly provides the school performance grades. There is some federal legislation that we're bound to adhere to as well. And so in 2015, President Obama asked Congress to revise what was the Elementary and Secondary Education Act. And that act actually had been passed in 1965 in the Johnson administration. From 1965 really up until 2015, that law, the Elementary and Secondary Education Act, really defined the federal government's role in supporting schools. In 2015, President Obama passed Every Student Succeeds Act, and that is often referred to as ESSA. So you'll hear folks refer to ESSA, and that's the federal legislation that is in place to guide how the federal government works with schools. Not to be confused with ESSER, which is the federal money we receive from COVID relief. So a lot of acronyms are here. But we'll speak in just a minute to schools that have been determined low performing. And so if we call a school low performing, that is coming from state legislation. That is from the school performance grades. But there are two terms I'd like to share with you that'll be important in the presentation that come from the federal legislation. And one is comprehensive support and improvement schools. They're referred to as CSI schools. We have one school that is a CSI school. And to be determined a CSI school, that would mean that the school is ranked in the bottom 5% of Title I schools in the country. And so Pasquotank County High School is ranked as a CSI school for its graduation rate. And so when you see that designation, that would mean that school is ranked in the bottom 5% of graduation rates across the country. Again, that's a federal designation. The second one is referred to as targeted support and improvement. Again, a federal designation, and that is TSI, and that would be schools that over a period of time have consistently underperformed in subgroups. So we measure how students do based on subgroups that they fall into, and if a school underperforms in a particular subgroup over a period of time, then they get identified a TSI school by the federal government. So three designations there that I think speak to something that we'll be looking at. On the next slide here, this is how North Carolina legislation in 2013 defines what a school report card is, performance grade. So essentially, the grade is on a 15-point scale. through A through F, F being lower than 40. And that grade of an A through an F is determined by two things, roughly speaking. 80% of the calculation is the school's overall achievement. And so that means students that score a level 3, 4, or 5 on the end of grade or end of course test. So essentially, are students passing the test or not? Regardless of if they grew in that year, do they pass the test with a level 3, 4, or 5? That is determined for 80% of the formula. And then 20% of the formula is determined on how a student grew that year. So in North Carolina, we can measure student growth based on a couple of indicators. We refer to that as EVOS growth data. And that calculation measures students and compares them to other students like them. So if Ms. Houston had a classroom of 25 third graders, their growth data is not compared to their friend that's in the classroom with them necessarily, but each student is compared to every other student around the state that may be like them. So if I'm in Ms. Houston's class and I miss 15 days, and in second grade, I had a particular score on the M-Class reading assessment, and I happened to be a white male student, I would only be compared to other white male students that missed 15 days that had a similar second grade EVOS score across the state. And so people can oftentimes be critical of the school performance calculations, and I'm not here to speak to the criticisms of it. There may or may not be merit to that. I think we all always can improve. But the growth measure is an extremely reliable indicator of what goes on in schools. Because again, students are being compared to other students like them. And so when we look at some of this data, I am extremely proud of our schools in Elizabeth City Pasquotank Public Schools, because we had tremendous amount of growth this school year. And what that tells me is, compared to other students like our students in the state, we grew, and in some cases, we grew more than other kids did in the state. Even though we have some work to do to make sure all of our students pass the test, we had a lot of students that grew and went beyond what they were required to grow for a year. So very encouraging when you look at the growth, which is an extremely reliable measure. A couple of shout outs here. We have 4 schools in the district that are not determined a low performing school. Again, that's the state calculation. Our early college, Weeksville Elementary School, Elizabeth City Middle School, and Sheep Harney Elementary School were four schools that were not determined low performing. ECMS and Sheep Harney both exceeded growth. So you can have 3 growth indicators you cannot meet, you can meet the growth, or you can exceed. Exceed growth means that the teacher took the students to not only learn what they were supposed to this year, but took them ahead and caught them up another year. And so when you see teachers in schools that exceed growth, that's an aha to say, whoa, those teachers are pushing those kids very hard, and they are making a lot of gains. They didn't only catch up, they went ahead what they were expected to do for the year. Both ECMS and Sheep Harney did that. ECMS had a growth index of 4.5, which was one of the highest growth indexes of any school in our region, including our neighboring counties. And I'm extremely proud of our schools that exceeded. P.W. Moore met growth and actually was the 3rd highest growth school in ECPPS. And so P.W. Moore went from not met to met growth. And even though they're still determined a low performing school, as Principal Ambrose shared tonight, on that trajectory they're on, I really do believe in my heart that they're going to exceed growth. And when they do that this year, Ms. Ambrose, when they do that this year, they will exit the status of low performing. And that is one way a school can get out of the status of low performing, is to exceed growth. And I know that we can do that. I'm very proud also of Pasquotank Elementary, because they were the only school in our district that both increased their growth and increased a letter grade. And I'm extremely proud of them. And just like with P.W. Moore, Ms. White, when y'all exceed growth this year, you will be able to exit low performance status as well. And so both of the 2 schools I just mentioned, P.W. Moore and Pasquotank, are on the right track. And I'm extremely proud of the work y'all are doing over there. Went backwards. Let me go forward here. Want to share with the board just a summary of where our schools stand in terms of growth. I know that might be a little bit hard for our guests to see. I apologize for that, but the board, you have the handout here. As you can notice by the growth column, the red category means a school did not meet. We only had one elementary school that did not meet growth, and that was J.C. Sawyer. The green is met and the blue is exceed. And as you can see by that column, we have a lot to be thankful for. Our teachers worked very hard last year, and we met our growth targets in every school except one, and then we exceeded at Sheep Harney. And you can see the growth score there of an 85.8 at Sheep Harney. That is exceptional. And ECMS had a 90 on the 100-point conversion for growth, so Sheep was right there behind them. But that lets me know that we're on the right track. And by pushing as hard as we did last year and going beyond, we're going to see our students increase their proficiency. And I know we're going to have some schools that will exit low performing status. Our two middle schools are indicated here. River Road Middle School is identified as a low performing school because their letter grade dropped to D, even though they met growth. But you notice there that Elizabeth City Middle School is not a low performing school, even though they are a D as well. And that is because they exceeded growth. So again, a school cannot be determined low performing if they exceed growth. And then our two high schools are indicated here, and then the early college as well, our two traditional high schools. And as you can see, we're really pouring a lot of resources and support into our two traditional high schools in particularly. Both of those schools did not meet growth. And as I mentioned earlier, Pasquotank County High School was identified as well as the CSI school, which was that federal designation I share with you. So I feel extremely encouraged, as Holly indicated, and Gracie, about the energy and positivity at our two high schools. We've had teachers that have been working very hard at those schools, but now we're putting some supports and we're really supporting those schools in a way where we can start to turn and see some improvement in these growth scores. So I feel encouraged, and I want to thank our district team that has been spending a lot of time at both those high schools and pouring a lot of energy and support into the work that's going on there. And I know that we can exit those low performance statuses for those schools. Wanted to share this with you. This is one area that we do have tremendous opportunity to improve on in Elizabeth City Pasquotank Public Schools, and that is our cohort graduation rate. So I'll just explain briefly what that means. So in North Carolina, when a student enters ninth grade, regardless of their age, when they enter ninth grade, they then are on the clock to have to graduate in 4 years from that ninth grade entry date. And if they don't graduate in 4 years, we will be penalized in our accountability model. So when 4-year cohort graduation rates drop, it doesn't mean necessarily that that many kids are dropping out of school. Some kids have dropped out of school, but when we look at these numbers, it specifically refers to the kids that graduated within 4 years from their entry date into ninth grade. And so our number has decreased significantly as a district here. You notice that we went from 75% in 2020-21 to 65% in 21-22. So we are channeling a lot of resources, particularly in our high schools, to find pathways for students that may have gotten behind, either as a result of COVID or for other things, and give them opportunities to get the credits they need so that they can be eligible then to graduate. And so we're working with both our high schools on identifying students that need those opportunities to make sure they can graduate on time, and going after kids that may have had attendance concerns or not been in school. We've been doing some home visits. We met last week. We're really identifying kids and saying, look, you come to school, we're going to work with you. If you work hard, we're going to get you across the finish line to graduation. And so that is our message of telling kids that there are opportunities in our high schools, and we're going to find ways to get kids to graduate if they work hard. I want to share just a couple of last minute pieces here on this, but love to take any questions or comments from the board about any of this data or anything that we just talked about. So I'll share just a couple of final pieces here. This is something I've shared with our school principals, and I shared with every staff member in the district 2 weeks ago when I held a virtual call for our staff to join. And this is something that sort of guides my thinking, and I think it's relevant to the work we got to do. But I do believe that systems achieve exactly what they are designed to achieve. And you can't expect a different result if you don't change the way you go about doing things. And so we have to think about that, because I'm not interested in just small incremental changes in that data. I don't think any of us can be satisfied until we see that cohort graduation rate go up to 100%. And to get a leap from 65 to 100 means that we have to change the ways about we go about things. And that doesn't mean that we're not working hard. It doesn't mean that teachers aren't pouring their heart and soul into their classrooms, because I believe they are. But I also believe you get exactly what you're supposed to get. And unless you change the way you go about doing things, you will continue to get what you had. And so we're working with our school staffs to say, we're not asking you to work harder. We're just saying we have to think differently about some of the work we're doing to make sure that we don't lose kids, and to make sure that kids are successful. And so the other thing I want to emphasize to the board here and to the public, and I've shared this with our teachers and staff, is I'm a person who believes that the data matters. Now, there are criticisms of the school performance grades, there's criticisms of testing, and I think there's reasonable criticisms out there, and we can all do better. But I can tell you, in my heart, I'm a classroom teacher, and teachers will not know if students learn something if they don't give them some type of assessment. And so data matters. You can't run schools unless you assess student learning and use that data to intervene when kids don't learn. And this is a thing that I've shared with our staff. Effective instruction is not about whether we taught it. It's about whether the students learned it. And from my own experience, there have been times when I've stood in front of young people as a classroom teacher and I taught my heart out, but only 3 or 4 of them really got what I was saying. I would never have known that had I not given some type of assessment and looked at it and thought, how in the world did they not get that? I taught that. Well, I did teach that, but it didn't come across in a way where they really learned it. And so effective instruction is not about whether we taught it, it's about whether the students learned it. And so we have to use data in a way to drive our decisions. And that's going to be a focus of us this year as we work with principals in schools to use data in a way that we make the right decisions by kids. I would just end with this part here. Imagine in your mind for a minute, imagine if each school in Elizabeth City Pasquotank Public Schools exceeded growth and became an A school. I think that's possible. Our young people and our teachers are capable of doing every other thing that any other young person or teacher does in this state and country. And I think that's possible. And that's the thing that drives me, our team, and our principals, is thinking that big about things. But again, we won't get there unless we change our systems, because systems achieve what they're designed to achieve. So we're motivated by this work, and I made a promise to our board, to our staff, our students, and our community. And my promise is we're not going to remain a low-performing school district, because in my short time here, I'm convinced that there's nothing low-performing about us. And so we've got to rally ourselves to get rid of this awful designation that's been put on us, because it does not describe the young people and teachers I meet every day in schools. And we're motivated by that work. So thank you, Madam Chair. That concludes the data presentation. If there's any questions, comments from the board, love to take them.
Thank you, Dr. Parker. Anything from any board member? That includes student board members as well. Have anything you'd like to say?
Something.
Want to thank you for the hard work you and your team. I know you've been.
Yes, and I just want to say that we do, like in the school, personally, like as a student, we do see that you are trying to do, the data growth plan rather than the past. We have the Panther time where we're going to first, second, third, and fourth block to have additional instructional time. and that extended our class times to just really have that focus. So it really is implementing in the schools.
Chair Perez.
Any other questions? Go on to the district improvement plan. Parker?
Thank you, Ms. Perez. So I'll share this here with the board. So we are required by, again, state legislation to develop a district improvement plan because we have been identified as a low performing district. And districts are identified low performing if over half of the schools in the district have been identified low performing. We have 8 of our 13 schools as low performing, so therefore we're a low performing district. I will tell you, we have 30 days to develop a district improvement plan, and the date starts on October 6th. And so we may end up, and I don't know if this is actually true, I'm speculating here, Reggie, so don't quote me on this one, but we very well may end up being the first district in North Carolina to submit their district improvement plan to the local Board of Education, because you're not even required to start working on it until October 6th. But myself and our team and our principals, as soon as we receive the notification we're going to be a low performing district, immediately began working on this plan that you have before you. And I would say to our team, to our principals, I want to thank them for their hard work. In the period of about 3 weeks, we pulled some 14, 15-hour days sometimes to get this plan ready. But our process has been our district team met, we identified the components of the plan. We then went to our school principals, got feedback, modified the components, came back and made some more revisions. And then this past week, we issued a survey that anybody in the schools, staff, students, community members, parents participated. I'm going to share some of that survey results with you. We then came back and made additional revisions, and now we have the plan that is here before you. So we've moved quickly on this, but we've also tried to be very thorough to get input from folks so that we can guide the process. So this is our improvement plan. Again, it's required by the state. And the plan is made up of 5 dimensions, and each dimension has an indicator we'll use to measure our progress. We had 65 responses in the survey, and I'll share some of those pieces here in a minute. But one of the things I would highlight, and some of the community feedback kind of spoke to this. First of all, I just want to thank our staff and community because as we read through every response that was given to us, and folks were very thorough in their responses, and I'm very thankful for that. We really didn't have anybody that just glanced at it and just said something. I mean, you could tell folks really read the plan when they submitted comments. So one, thank you if you submitted a comment, very thorough comments. But there's a difference in an improvement plan and a strategic plan. So this improvement plan is required to be completed by the state, and it specifically addresses reasons why we were identified a low-performing school. But you can improve and you can problem solve, and we have to do that in our work. But sometimes problem solving, that's all you do, it still won't get you what you want. For example, I want our students to exceed growth and pass the test, and I want us to have A schools that exceed growth. But even if we get all of that, we still won't have what we want if our young people aren't prepared to live their lives, if their hearts don't change like their minds do, if they don't get the skills to be good people. Those are things we really want. And this plan does not in of itself address some of those things. So this plan is about problem solving. We're beginning the process to gather input to write a 5-year strategic plan for the district. Currently, our strategic plan has expired in 2021, 22. And so what we want to do is gather input from everybody we can in the community, write a 5-year vision for where we want to take the schools. And so that is not what this is. This is particularly a problem-solving plan. We are in the process of writing our strategic plan, and my goal would be to announce that to the board and the community as we get into first of the year. So just a quick distinction here. But I'll move this rather quickly here. The board's got a copy of this. We did have 65 responses to the survey that was sent out and posted publicly as we were required to do. A couple of things, I'll share some feedback. So we took feedback from the community and we modified the plan. So I want to point out 3 specific ways we did this. But someone left this comment to us on the feedback survey, and the comment was, "I wish there was help for those traumatized by events of the last couple years. I worry about the mental health of my child and his friends, as well as staff members I know who have been hurt and worn down by these events." I think that was a great comment, and I think there's a lot of truth to that. So we came back to dimension E, which is the families and community engagement dimension, and we added this action step based on that feedback. We added professional learning will be offered to ECPPS staff on self-care and mindfulness strategies that promote resilience in students. And we're working with some folks to get some training to our staff on how to support students that have had trauma, and that fits into that. So that's an example of how someone a parent identified an area we can improve. Here's another comment that was left in the survey. Attendance is the #1 issue within our school district, in my opinion, as a teacher. And then someone else also left this comment. Also, a strong mentoring program that monitors high school students who miss excessive days or are contemplating dropping out of school is needed. That's great feedback. So we went into dimension B, and we added this in one of the indicators. The Student Support Services Department will establish guidelines for attendance monitoring and dropout prevention. And so we're specifically now going to target those areas. And again, I want to thank those parents who gave us that feedback. The final piece I would add here is an example of how we took feedback and modified the plan. Is a comment a parent left us. I would like to see added phone calls, emails, or other methods to connect with parents during summer about the next school year's expectations and activities and build a relationship with each family. Again, that's really good feedback and something we hadn't thought of initially. So we added this to dimension E. We will communicate with families through phone calls, emails, and social media regarding summer learning opportunities and expectations for the upcoming year. So again, I want to thank the community for the feedback, for the parents and staff, and just want to give 3 examples there of how we took your feedback and actually built it into the plan. I'll go through each of the dimensions here and then take questions from the board. The first dimension, out of here, Dexter. No, I'm good. So the first dimension focuses specifically on instruction and alignment. And so I'll go over the indicators, and you'll notice there are action steps below each indicator. In the computer program, we're required to use a program called NC Star, and that program will allow us to track our progress toward these action steps. And we'll log all of that into the program as we begin this work. What's provided to the board in what's called your comprehensive progress report, we've actually assigned each of these action steps to a school leader, to somebody in the district that will be responsible for leading that work. But the first indicator is the superintendent and other central office staff are accountable for district and school improvement and student learning outcomes. And that's a part of our work as a team to take responsibility that it's our job to lead the district, the schools in improvement. Next indicator in A is the district provides a cohesive district curriculum guide aligned with state standards. And I will say that Mr. Fudge, Mr. Fomble, and our district curriculum leaders have already been working very heavily on this. And so we've made quite a bit of progress here, but we want to have guides for our teachers that align what they teach directly to the state standards. So we know when we assess kids, it's based on the state standards, and we're making a lot of progress in aligning our lessons to the state standards. Next one here is the district supports a student-centered approach and provides an instructional framework based on learner profiles that inform individualized learning paths and competency-based progression in a flexible learning environment. A lot of that is speaking to the work that Ms. White and Ms. Ambrose spoke of in their small groups, where they're bringing kids together and finding the needs that kids have and then intervening at small group reading tables as the example they gave. Final indicator here in A is the district provides and supports digital age classrooms and learning opportunities through relevant and necessary materials. Again, this is an important one because we want to utilize the full potential of our one-to-one Chromebook initiative so that we can give kids access to not only just learn when they're in the classroom, but learning can continue when they leave us. And so I think that's an important one there. I'll move through these next ones here, and then I'll take information from the board. A lot of our community and parents and staff gave us input that dimension B was important to them, which is leadership capacity. So essentially, we want to build the leadership capacity of our teachers and also of our school leaders. First indicator is the district has oriented its culture towards shared responsibility and accountability. I've said this recently that we teach in schools, not just in classrooms. Kids learn in a lot of different ways, not just a teacher. And so we want to create that shared responsibility. The school board and superintendent present a unified vision for district and school improvement. And I would say that this indicator is something that excites me because the energy and the collaboration that we have with the Board of Education, with our schools. I want to thank the board for being visible at many of our school and community events. The support that the board gives directly to our schools plays a paramount role. And this indicator in particular was an indicator that was highly ranked by our school principals of wanting to include this on the improvement plan. And it really does speak to the benefit of as we all work together in a shared environment. So that one's an important one, and I appreciate the support of the board as we work together to improve our schools. The next one here is the district examines existing improvement strategies and determines their value. And you'll notice here there are several different action steps for this one, but we're basically doing a comprehensive. I think the battery might be dying on this one, Dexter. We're doing a comprehensive audit of our departments and looking for ways to maximize what we're doing. And I think that's an important piece there. Finally, in Dimension B, the district proactively supports and emphasizes student-centered instruction by seeking solutions to remove barriers related to policies, practice, and traditions. One of our goals in this standard is going to be to continue to review the board policy manual as it relates specifically to student achievement. I can tell you, as I've been going through the board policy manual, there are some policies that would be a great target to improve the policy, to update it with the School Boards Association recommended version. And what we want to do in policy is remove barriers to kids and maximize their opportunities. And so as we work together with the school board, we're looking specifically how to let our policy reflect some of the work we're doing. And that indicator speaks to that. Just two more here. So the professional capacity, I'll point out one thing in particular here. Thank you, Mr. Fumble. That might be an indication I've been talking a lot. I've drained the battery, Dexter, so I'm going to try to move along as fast as I can here on this. But one I will point out here in Dimension C, which is professional capacity, is we are developing and going to be launching here shortly. The goal is to launch this in October, an emerging leaders program that is going to be for all of our current employees. So one of the things we got to look at is for teachers that may be interested in a leadership opportunity, but may not want to become a school principal. We want to find those folks and we want to connect them to opportunities where they can lead in their school, lead in their classroom, and support this work. So we're going to be communicating this to our staff and then inviting our staff to join this emerging leaders program. Some teachers may be interested in being a principal one day. If so, we want them to join this program. But we want to give these teachers that'll be in this cohort some specialized training, give them some experiences, and really give them some development, and then set our leaders up to move into roles in the district where they could be highly suited. Recruitment and retention is a very big and important goal of this strategy here, and that's reflected in that indicator. And then we also want to provide professional learning opportunities. Certainly when our staff come to us, we want to make sure they grow, and those last two indicators there speak to professional development. This actual next indicator here, D, and I got a little behind on the slide, but Dimension D, planning and operational effectiveness, was the second highest rated dimension through the survey. And so what that says to me is our parents, teachers, staff, and community want to emphasize that they want us to be efficient and effective with how we run schools. And that means school buses being on time. That means that schools operate in a timely way, that we get the grass cut, that we are managing our house in a sense. And I'm encouraged by the work that our leaders are doing, our district leaders, but we want to continue to prioritize the efficiency and effectiveness of our operations. And these indicators, speak to that very heavily there. Particularly, I would point out two indicators that received a lot of feedback from everybody was DO4. The district regularly allocates resources to support school staff and instructional improvement. And then DO5, the district intervenes early when a school is not making adequate progress. And actually, a lot of people on the survey specifically pointed out DO5. And I had made a reference over here, and I don't see it right in front of me, but one person said, I love that because you need to get involved early if the school is not making the growth targets they need to be. And so that's a part of why we're in schools almost daily. We're working with principals. We're looking at data. Again, you won't know if a school is not making progress necessarily unless you look at the data. And so that's why we're very data focused. But I think that's true. And it's really doing somebody wrong if you wait to the end of the school year to say, I've got a problem with what's going on. You need to be able to give folks feedback, and principals need to be able to give that to teachers. And so that is an important one there. And then finally, for Dimension E, I would talk about, we only had one indicator here, but we had several action steps. And this dimension was community and family engagement. But one of the things we want to do is continue to get buy-in from our families. We are in the process of beginning the planning process to launch a redesigned website that we're planning on launching in the spring. And that'll simplify a lot of the information we have on the site and make our website more user-friendly and easy to navigate. And we're also looking at launching an electronic flyer distribution service where folks can submit flyers and they just get emailed to everybody without having to make copies of things. So those are just two small examples of how we can help this. And then to that parent who gave the comment about trauma, you'll notice here that we added an action step of offering the professional development on mindfulness and resilience. So I appreciate the board indulging me with that. I did want to go through each of the dimensions and share that, and also want to go on the record to share that with the public. This plan is changed since we posted it last week because we've updated it based on the feedback. But what we'll be doing if the board approves this tonight is we will post this online. We are required to submit the plan if the board approves it tonight to the State Board of Education within 5 days. And so I will submit that plan. The state board will actually review and approve the plan. And if they do that at their October meeting, then that will become our improvement plan for the year. So I appreciate your patience for letting me go through those indicators. I'd love to take any questions or comments from the board at this time.
What kinds of things are we doing specifically to address attendance, especially at the high schools, as we mentioned that? Like, what are some specific strategies that we're doing to address the attendance? We said that was one of the indications or indicators that affected
What was the question?
graduation rate.
That's a great question.
What was the question? Can you repeat the question?
Question was, what are we doing at the schools to address kids that have attendance issues? So that work is ongoing, but I'll tell you a couple of small things we're doing. Dexter is working with Ms. Proctor to identify a process where we can have Parent Portal, Parent Square rather, automatically call parents if their students are absent. So right now, if a student's absent, we're asking teachers to make phone calls. There's nothing wrong with that. A teacher should call parents, right? But we want to get some automation where if a young person is out, then Parent Square will automatically call the parent on that day. So that's one small step there. We're trying to make this more efficient. If a student has missed 3 days, for example, we want the teacher to make contact. But for a high school student, if they're out all 4 periods, all 4 teachers shouldn't necessarily call that one parent, because if they did, the parent's getting 4 back-to-back phone calls that night. So we want to think a little more efficiently in that regard. And Ms. Reed, myself, and our attendance counselors are working through some of those processes. That's just some small pieces there. We have pulled a report of students who did not show up to school within the first 2 weeks. And what I asked the principals, particularly high school principals, to do is don't drop those kids. Even though you technically could do that, don't drop them. Somebody needs to go to their house and say, hey, come back to school. Why are you not coming to school? So we're specifically targeting kids that have attendance issues. We ran another report last week and are targeting kids to go and make phone calls and look out. So the work is ongoing, but usually when students, well, not usually, but always when students miss school, there are reasons. And so it's not just enough to pick the phone up and say, come back to school. The question is, tell me why you're out. What can we do to support? And a lot of times students and families, they need support for whichever reasons resulting in the attendance. But we know if we don't address attendance, we're not going to improve the cohort graduation rates. So great question.
Thank you.
I'd just like to say that as I read the plan at home, I really did appreciate the easy read that it was. Sometimes we have so much educational jargon that it's hard to understand, but everything that was here was clearly delineated, and so parents and other persons who wanted to provide feedback could easily understand it, and I think that's probably why you got the responses that you did. So that was appreciated by me.
Thank you.
I just want to follow up to Pam's question. For those who are not attending school, and you're going to have supports in place when they return, because then that will be a concern because of what they've missed. So is that your plan to address that as well?
Absolutely. And that is definitely some ongoing work that we've got to look at is for students that may miss 3 to 4 to 5 days, certainly they got to have support. But we have some students that have chronic absenteeism that goes into 10 and 15 and 20 days. And in a semester situation in high school, if you miss the first 20 days of school, I mean, you in a Math 1 class, you've at least missed 3 to 4 units. So the chronic absenteeism becomes a multiplier effect. And so you're going to get to a student's going to get to a point mid-semester that even if they were to come back and say, okay, I'm here now, they've missed so much content that we're going to have to think differently. And that was my comment earlier about systems achieve what they're designed to achieve. If a young person shows up midway through the semester, yeah, come back to school. We want you. Come on. But when you get here, we just can't say pick up with, chapter 15 and let's go at it. I mean, it's just the kid has missed too much. So we have to think differently about how we support kids. We're not there, and we're trying to dive into some of that work. And a lot of this work we're building as we go through that. But our message to any young person right now is, regardless of the days you missed, come back to school in Elizabeth City Pasquotank Public School, and we will find a way, one way or the other, to support you if you come back to school. A great question.
The professional development piece for teachers, are we going to do that as a district with our district leadership conducting a lot of that work? Or are there plans to use people from the State Department or from other universities? What's the plan there?
I would say yes to all of that.
Okay.
I think what we want to do is be very strategic and targeted about what we train teachers on, because we don't have extra time. So if we pull teachers or principals to train, we want to make sure that training is relevant to what they actually need,
Right.
and what our goal is in our improvement plan and what will eventually be our strategic plan. So when we can get our strategic plan built, that will guide everything we train on. What's in the strategic plan. We don't have the strategic plan now, so we're letting the district improvement plan guide us. A lot of that work we're doing with our district leadership team. We are planning on October 20th for half of the day to do a professional learning day for all staff at Northeastern High School. And we're going to be leading a lot of those sessions. Teachers will be able to sign up and choose some sessions that they want to go to. We're also going to be asking some of our lead teachers to come and do sessions, and we'll have visiting folks from universities and different places that'll come. So a little bit of all of that. Right now, we're building so many things from the ground up. Myself and our district leaders and our instructional team are really just kind of jumping in with school principals and district teams and figuring it out together. So we're sitting in on PLC meetings. We're getting feedback from teachers. A lot of this work is right now, we've been going into classrooms and talking to teachers and saying, what really works about your lesson plan? What doesn't work? What helps you? And we're getting that type of feedback. So right now, a lot of our work is done by us, in part because I'm hesitant to bring a lot of people from the outside because we haven't fully figured out the depth of what we want to do. And so sometimes you can get so many resources, you trip over your own 2 feet. So we're trying to work very closely with our school principals to make sure if we pull somebody to train them, that was a useful block of time. And if it's not fully useful and aligned to what they needed, we're better off not to pull them at this point and just let them stay in the classroom and continue working. So, but the long-term strategy is yes to all of that.
Well, I want to say that we have some talented people in Elizabeth City, Pasquotank. I have observed our instructional coach team, for example, the district team, conduct some professional development on a district level. It's been phenomenal. And the comments from those who participated were all very positive. Everyone felt very good as they were going out. They felt like they had gotten something that they could really use that would improve their instruction with the students. So just wanted to add that. So kudos to them. Also wanted to ask about the trauma piece. What is the plan for that? I mean, are we planning on using, again, a team from outside, contract someone who could come in and work with that kind of thing? Or are we going to do that at the district level with our own people?
Question. We already have, that work has already gone on, and we do have a foundation for supporting our students either through school counselors, through programs that the schools have. What we want to do is give teachers and counselors additional tools they can pull from their toolkit. So the exact form of what that'll look like, I don't know yet, but I know that we have an eagerness from our staff to get more training on how to support kids who have gone through social and emotional trauma. I think our SEL programs and our MTSS programs help with that already. It's built in. So we've got a foundation. We've had a head start. And our counselors have been doing that work since there was a school counselor, right? A school counselor supporting on that work. We want to extend that. And there are some really creative programs out there where teachers and communities have built on resiliency in kids. Just even a simple breathing strategy for a young person can be a coping skill. You know, if you're anxious and you might feel like you're having a panic attack, just being able to breathe for a moment sometimes for a young person can be helpful in that moment to help them get their thinking back. So even sometimes small strategies can go a long way. So we're looking to see how we can build on what we have and also give teachers more strengths as well.
Thank you.
And the professional development, I'm believing, will be something that all persons will, in which all persons will participate. Like Ms. Warden, I've seen some wonderful professional development that was done by our instructional staff at both the district and the school levels. But it looked as if the attendance may have been optional, and so you get wonderful staff development, but there would not be enough people there to receive it. So I'm asking, will all staff be persuaded to participate in the professional development?
I think it's a mixture of both. What we're going to do on the 20th will be a required participation for teachers, because in part we want to get teachers together and train them on what's in this improvement plan. We want to train them on the instructional framework. We want to tell teachers when we go in classrooms and principals go in classrooms, here's what we're looking for. You know, it's sometimes not fair to hold people accountable if you've not first told them what you're looking for.
Right.
So that's going to be crucial to get everybody together on the 20th. But then I also think there are opportunities that'll be happening through the year where we'll give folks the option to buy in, you know, and if folks are looking for training in certain areas, we want to offer that and say, come on, you know, join us. So there'll be a mixture of both, but the 20th in particular, Ms. Houston, will be a required day.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Rosa?
Questions? Any other questions? I make a motion to approve the PE02 District Improvement Plan as presented.
Second.
We've had a motion and a second to approve the district improvement plan as presented. We need a roll call vote.
Dr. Sheila Williams.
Yes.
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 Thank you very much. And if there are no other questions or concerns at this time, I'm going to ask Dr. Williams if she will take us into closed.
A motion for the board to go into closed session as allowed by NC General Statute 143 through 318-11A6 for the purpose of considering one or more personnel matters that are confidential under NC General Statute 115C through 320 and as allowed by NC General Statute 143 through 318-11A3 to consult with the board attorney and regarding matters protected by the attorney-client privilege and to preserve that privilege. And the board will resume open session live stream following closed session.
Okay. Been a motion and a second to go into closed at this time, and we need a roll call vote.
Dr. Sheila Williams. Coletta.
Yes.
Virginia Houston.
Yes.
Pam Pereza.
Yes.
Rodney Walton.
Yes.
Daniel Spence.